The replacement. Mark Bennett first noticed something wrong with his wife on a Tuesday evening in late October. Nothing dramatic, nothing you could point to and say, "There, that's it." Just the feeling, cold and persistent, like a draft from a window you couldn't find. He'd come home from work around 6:30, later than usual. The house smelled different. Sarah had made lasagna, his favorite, but she'd added something to it. Oregano, maybe? She never used oregano. She said it tasted like soap. "It smells amazing," Mark said, dropping his keys on the counter. Sarah turned from the stove. Her smile was perfect. Too perfect. The kind of smile you'd see in a toothpaste commercial. Bright and empty. "I tried something new. Hope you like it." Mark kissed her cheek. Her skin felt cooler than normal. He told himself she'd been standing by the open window. They ate dinner making small talk. Sarah asked about his day. He told her about the server migration at work, the usual chaos. She nodded in all the right places, made sympathetic noises when he complained about his boss, but something felt rehearsed about it, mechanical. "How was school?" he asked. "Fine. We started the Civil War unit today. The kids were engaged." Mark frowned. "Didn't you finish the Civil War last week?" Sarah blinked. Once. Twice. "Did I say Civil War? I meant the Revolutionary War. Long day." She laughed, but the sound came out half a second too late, like a video with the audio slightly out of sync. That night, Mark lay awake listening to Sarah breathe beside him. Except she wasn't breathing. Not exactly. The rhythm was too steady, too measured. In 10 years of marriage, he'd memorized the small catches in her breath, the occasional snore she denied having. This was different. This was the breathing of someone pretending to sleep. He turned his head on the pillow. Sarah's eyes were closed, her face serene. But in the dim light from the street lamp outside, he could swear he saw her eyelids moving. Not fluttering, moving. Like something was shifting beneath them. Mark closed his eyes and told himself he was being ridiculous. The next morning he woke to find Sarah already up, dressed, standing at the bedroom window. "Morning," he said, his voice rough with sleep. She didn't turn around. "There's a bird out there. A cardinal. Beautiful red." Mark joined her at the window. He saw a sparrow, brown and unremarkable, pecking at the ground. "That's a sparrow, babe." Sarah looked at him, then back at the bird. "Right. Sparrow. I always mix those up." "No, you don't." Sarah had a minor in biology. She could identify 40 species of birds. At breakfast, she put milk in her coffee. Sarah hated milk in her coffee, had hated it since college, since that time she'd gotten food poisoning from spoiled cream. "Since when do you take milk?" he asked, trying to keep his tone light. "I don't know. Felt like a change." She took a sip, made no face, no grimace of distaste. Mark watched her across the table. She was doing everything right, holding her mug the same way, sitting in her usual chair, wearing her favorite morning cardigan. But it was like watching an actor who'd studied the role perfectly, but couldn't quite capture the soul of the character. "Sarah," he said carefully, "are you feeling okay?" "I'm fine." "Why?" "You seem different." Her eyes met him, and for just a moment he saw something in them. Something that wasn't Sarah. Something that was calculating, measuring, adjusting. Then it was gone, and she was smiling again. "Different how?" "Never mind. Just me being weird." But it wasn't him being weird. He knew it. Felt it in his bones.
Over the next few days, Mark started keeping a mental list. Small things, stupid things, things that shouldn't matter, but somehow did. Sarah stopped biting her lower lip when she concentrated. She'd done that for as long as he'd known her, a nervous habit she hated but couldn't break. Now, when she read or worked on her laptop, her face was completely still. She reorganized the pantry, putting the cereal boxes on the left instead of the right. When he mentioned it, she looked confused, as if she couldn't understand why it mattered. She forgot their song. They'd been at a restaurant, and Harvest Moon came on, the song they danced to at their wedding. Mark had smiled at her, but she just kept eating, unbothered. "Remember this?" he'd asked. "Remember what?" "The song. Our song." She tilted her head, listening. "It's nice." Nice. She'd called their wedding song nice. That night, Mark pretended to fall asleep early. He kept his breathing steady, his body still. After 20 minutes, he heard Sarah get up. Through slitted eyes, he watched her walk to the closet and pull out a jacket. Where was she going at 11 p.m.? He waited until he heard the front door close, then got up and looked out the window. Sarah was walking down the street, her pace brisk and purposeful. No hesitation, no looking around. Like she knew exactly where she was going. Mark threw on clothes and followed. She walked for 15 minutes, cutting through neighborhoods he barely recognized. They'd only moved to Millbrook 3 months ago. Sarah shouldn't know these streets this well. She stopped at an old warehouse on the edge of town, the kind of building that had once been something important, but now sat abandoned, windows broken, weeds growing through cracks in the parking lot. Mark ducked behind a dumpster as Sarah approached the side entrance. She didn't knock, just placed her palm flat against the door. After a moment, it opened. Light spilled out, harsh, white, clinical. Nothing like what you'd expect from an abandoned building. Sarah went inside. The door closed behind her. Mark's heart hammered in his chest. What the hell was happening? He crept closer, staying in the shadows. Through a grimy window, he could see movement inside. People, maybe 20 or 30 of them, standing in a loose circle. He found a better vantage point, a window with a crack large enough to see through clearly. That's when his world tilted sideways. Sarah stood in the circle with the others, but she wasn't alone. Every person there looked wrong. Like Sarah looked wrong. They all had that same quality of being just slightly off. Like mannequins that moved too smoothly, smiled too precisely. And they were speaking, but not in English. Not in any language Mark had ever heard. It was a sound like wind through trees, like water over stones, like something organic and alien all at once. Sarah's mouth moved with the sounds, perfectly fluent. Then one of them, a man in his 50s wearing a postal uniform, said in clear English, "The integration is proceeding ahead of schedule. Millbrook will be fully transitioned within 6 weeks." "Any resistance?" another asked. "Minimal. The Hendersons showed signs of awareness. We expedited their replacement." The Hendersons. He knew them. Friendly couple in their 60s. Lived 3 streets over. He'd seen them at the grocery store last week. They'd seemed fine. "What about the Bennett household?" someone asked. Mark's blood turned to ice. Sarah, or the thing wearing Sarah's face, spoke. "The husband is perceptive. He's noticed inconsistencies." "Will he require intervention?" "Not yet. I'm adapting, learning. The emotional responses are complex, but manageable." "And the original?" "Stored, stable. We'll need her memories for another 4 to 6 weeks until the neural mapping is complete." Original. Stored.
Mark's legs went weak. The original, Sarah, the real Sarah, was somewhere, stored, while this thing wore her face and slept in his bed and learned how to be her. He backed away from the window, bile rising in his throat. He needed to think, needed to... His foot caught on something metal. A trash can lid clattered across the pavement. The voices inside stopped. Mark ran. He heard the door open behind him, heard footsteps, too many footsteps. He didn't look back. just ran through the dark streets, his breath burning in his lungs, his mind screaming a single word over and over. Run! 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 He made it home, burst through the door, locked it behind him. As if locks would matter, as if anything mattered anymore. Think. He had to think. Where would they keep her? The real Sarah? Somewhere in that warehouse? Somewhere else? He went to the basement. They'd barely used it since moving in. Just storage, boxes they hadn't unpacked. But now he looked at it differently. Looked at the walls, the floor, There. In the corner, behind the old water heater. A door. Except there shouldn't be a door there. The house plans he'd seen when they bought the place didn't show a door. It wasn't even hidden, really, just painted the same color as the wall, easy to miss if you weren't looking. Mark's hand shook as he turned the handle. It opened into a narrow corridor, sloping downward. LED lights flickered on automatically, sensing his presence. The walls were smooth, metallic, not part of the original house, added later, added recently. He descended, his heart threatening to break through his ribs. The corridor ended in a small room, and in the center of the room, suspended in something that looked like glass but wasn't, was Sarah. His Sarah. She was unconscious, her body held in some kind of stasis field. Wires or tubes, he couldn't tell which, connected to points on her temples, her wrists, her spine. Oh God, Sarah, Sarah! He touched the field. It was warm, humming with energy. How was he supposed to get her out? There had to be controls, a release mechanism. Mark? He spun around. Sarah, the other Sarah, stood at the entrance to the corridor. She looked sad, or what passed for sad, in whatever she was. You shouldn't have come down here. What are you? What the hell are you? We don't have a word in your language. The closest translation would be custodians. We prepare worlds for transition. You're stealing people's lives. We're preserving them. Your wife isn't suffering. She's dreaming, peaceful dreams. And when the transition is complete, she'll be integrated into the collective. All her memories, all her experiences, they'll become part of something larger, something better. You're insane. We're inevitable. She took a step closer. Mark, you're a good man, a kind man. Sarah's memories show that. You don't have to fight this. Let us help you. Let us make you better. Stay away from me. It doesn't hurt. You'll go to sleep, and when you wake, you'll be more than you were, faster, smarter, free from disease and aging. We're not monsters. We're offering you immortality.
Mark looked at the real Sarah, suspended and dreaming. He thought about their first date, the way she'd laughed at his terrible jokes, their wedding day, dancing under string lights, the life they'd built together, small and ordinary and precious. No, he said. The other Sarah sighed. Then we'll have to do this the difficult way. She moved faster than should have been possible. One moment she was at the door. The next she had Mark by the throat, lifting him off the ground. Her grip was iron, her eyes flat and inhuman. We tried to be gentle. We always try to be gentle. Black spots danced in Mark's vision. He clawed at her hands, but it was like fighting stone. His legs kicked uselessly. This is it, he thought. This is how I die. Then the pressure released. He fell to the ground, gasping, his throat on fire. The other Sarah staggered backward, her hand pressed to her head. Behind her, the real Sarah's eyes had opened inside the stasis field. Her mouth was moving, forming words. The neural link,
the other Sarah said, her voice distorted. "She's fighting the—" She collapsed. Mark scrambled to the controls he'd been looking for earlier, slamming his hand against buttons and levers. The stasis field flickered, wavered, then dissolved. Sarah fell forward, and Mark caught her. She was cold, her body weak, but her eyes were clear and focused. "Mark," she whispered, "I've got you. I've got you." Behind them, the other Sarah began to stir. "We have to go," Sarah said. "Now!" They ran, up the corridor, through the basement, out into the night. Mark's car was in the driveway. He threw Sarah into the passenger seat, started the engine, and drove. "Where are we going?" Sarah asked, her voice still weak. "I don't know. Away. Somewhere safe." "Nowhere's safe. They're everywhere, Mark. Not just Millbrook. It's happening all over." "Then we'll go to the police, the FBI. You think they haven't replaced them too?" Mark's hands tightened on the steering wheel. She was right. If they'd infiltrated Millbrook this thoroughly, who's to say they hadn't already spread further? They drove through the night, putting miles between themselves and the town. Sarah told him what she knew, fragments of memories from her time in the stasis, dreams that weren't quite dreams. They've been planning this for years, maybe decades. Small towns first, places where people know each other, where infiltration is easier to notice if you mess up. But they're learning fast, getting better at being us. "Why?" Mark asked. "Why do it this way? If they can do all this, the technology, the infiltration, why not just invade, take over by force?" "Because force creates resistance, martyrs. But this, slow replacement, one person at a time, by the time anyone realizes what's happening, it's too late. There's no enemy to fight, just your neighbor, your friend, your spouse. How do you fight that?" Mark had no answer. They made it to Baltimore by dawn, a bigger city, more people, more places to hide. They checked into a cheap motel using cash, no IDs. Sarah showered while Mark stood watch at the window. Every person who passed on the street below could be one of them. Every car that slowed down could be a threat.
When Sarah emerged, wrapped in a threadbare towel, she looked more like herself. The color had returned to her cheeks, and her eyes had that familiar spark. "We need a plan," she said. "I know. People need to know what's happening. Who's going to believe us? We sound insane. Then we find proof, evidence, something undeniable." Mark nodded slowly. It was insane, impossible. But what choice did they have? Sarah sat on the bed beside him. She took his hand, and her grip was warm and real and everything he'd missed. "Thank you," she said, "for not giving up on me." "Never," Mark said. "I'll never—" He stopped. In the bathroom mirror, visible through the open door, he saw his own reflection. And in his eyes, just for a fraction of a second, something moved. Something that rippled and shifted and was not quite human. Sarah followed his gaze. She saw it too. Her hand tightened on his, her face going pale. "Mark," she whispered. He looked down at their joined hands, tried to remember. When had they taken him? The warehouse? Before? Had he ever escaped at all, or was that just another layer of programming, another false memory designed to make Sarah trust him? "Mark, when did they—" "I don't know," he said, and his voice sounded strange to his own ears, foreign. "I don't remember." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "No, no, you're still you. You have to still be you." But Mark wasn't sure anymore. Wasn't sure of anything. He looked at his hands, flexed his fingers. They moved normally. He felt normal. But what did normal mean when your thoughts might not be your own? "Sarah," he said, carefully, "I need you to listen to me. If I'm not
If I'm one of them, you need to run. I'm not leaving you. Sarah, I said I'm not leaving you. They sat in silence, the weight of the truth pressing down on them. Outside, the city awoke up. Cars honked, people shouted. Life went on, oblivious. Mark felt Sarah studying him, searching his face for signs of who he used to be, or maybe who he still was. He wanted to reassure her, but the words felt hollow. How could he promise to be himself when he didn't know if himself still existed? "We'll figure this out," Sarah said finally. "Together. Even if they changed you, you're still Mark. You saved me. That has to mean something." Mark wanted to believe her, wanted to believe that whatever they'd done to him, if they'd done anything, hadn't erased the core of who he was. But in the back of his mind, a small voice whispered, "Or maybe that's exactly what they want you to think." He looked at Sarah, really looked at her, saw the hope and fear warring in her eyes, saw the woman he loved, the woman he'd fought to save, and he smiled. "You're right," he said. "We'll figure this out. Together." Sarah smiled back, relief flooding her features. She leaned against him, and he wrapped his arms around her, holding her close. In the bathroom mirror, his reflection watched them both, and if someone had been paying very close attention, they might have noticed that his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. Outside, the sun continued to rise over Baltimore. Another day beginning, another day of the slow, patient replacement. And in a motel room on the edge of the city, two people held each other close, neither quite sure anymore which one of them was real.